getting close. Okay. Now I'll just give it a minute, let people log in. I think you still hear me back there. Okay, and I think we are officially live. Well, look, for those of you that know me, you've seen me around on LinkedIn, this is a little bit of an exciting milestone for me. For those of you like Neil Templeman from Biden and Ian Haslacker and Andrew Madazak and Jason Millett and all the people that have known the journey of meetmagic, you'll know that this is a really exciting time to be able to have a CEO of a bank join us on a LinkedIn Live to share his experience. As you know, I started this meetmagic about 4 years ago as a way to help build a new sustainable fundraising model for charities. We all know, I think it's pretty clear that executives hate being sold to. I think they hate having their time wasted, and they really hate being bombarded with emails. So our mission really is to change that by making authentic connections that can also make a difference to the causes that they care about. And today we've managed to convince almost 1,000 executives, amazing executives from 4 countries around the world, to get involved. Now, I'm very excited that we've got Steve Jurkovich, the CEO of Kiwibank, that's about to join us, and I'm going to bring him on stage in a minute. But I just want to give a massive, huge shout out to Brendon Pongia, who used to play basketball for the Tall Blacks. I didn't even know the Tall Blacks was a thing, but the Tall Blacks was Brendon played for many years at the national level for New Zealand, and he's also the head of business development for Cure Kids, which is the charity that we've partnered with in New Zealand. I don't think I've seen anyone with relationships like him, and what he's done for us in just a few short months is brought some amazing execs to the table. So without further ado, I know Brendon is chomping at the bit to get on. I'm going to introduce Brendon and Steve to the call. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yeah, I should say Cura, shouldn't I? First of all, I probably should take a step back and give an acknowledgement to country, because you're coming from the land of the Māori people, and I'm coming from the land of the Aboriginal people, and I would just like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and kickstart from here. So, Brendon, mate, what a few short months. I mean, we've had almost 100 execs that have signed up already.
Yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and Steve, thank you for joining us today and being part of it. It is a milestone, really. When I first engaged with Carl around the meetmagic, and when you look at the charity space, and not that we're driven by a lot of events, but in an environment that we're in currently, in a COVID environment, if you're an event-focused charity, you'll struggle, because people can't meet and get together and be able to have those specific events. So when I saw this opportunity to engage with meetmagic, I saw what Carl was doing, and I've got a pretty decent business network here in New Zealand, and it is kind of a village, as you know, Steve. A lot of people know a lot of people in different industries, and I saw the opportunity to try and look at creating something or an ecosystem where we could get these execs, these busy execs, and get them to donate 45 minutes of their time a quarter. And when you look at it, it's about a lot of these execs, and I know, Steve, you'll talk about it soon, are time poor, and to be able to create those opportunities. I imagine your inbox is getting bombarded day in, day out, and so you want to kind of understand and know who you're talking to, and so that your time's being used in its quality. So joining meetmagic has been fantastic for us as an organisation, for Cure Kids. For me, it's about opening the door on what we do as an organisation. We've been around for 50 years, so we're not a charity that's been fly by night. We've been here for 50 years, and we've given close to $60 million in the child health research space. So I feel very proud about what we do as an organisation, and if I can get corporates and organisations to engage in some way by giving 45 minutes of their time. And I guess with the model that Carl has, and with the different vendors, and I'm sure there's some of those vendors that are on this call now, that they want to meet with people like Steve at Kiwibank and maybe solve some problems or create some opportunities to have conversations around whether it's artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, whatever, interests that organizations are looking at. So it's been massive, and it excites me. I'm driven to try and get 1,000 execs signed up. I know a lot of people, and people know me, that I'm not shy in asking. And I think when you're shy in asking for something, I think you don't believe in what you work for. So I know the impact that we have as an organisation at Cure Kids. So when I ask somebody, I know the amount of impact that we have, and so the money that we were able to raise, I know it's being used in a positive way. So I guess to start things off, Steve, because there are people from over in Australia, and I think there's some people from Singapore that are in on this call. Tell us a little bit about your journey of becoming a CEO at Kiwibank.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first, maybe I'll just talk about the stuff that you mentioned there, Brendon. So, having been through, I think this is my third meeting yesterday with that's facilitated via meetmagic, is a kind of a classic example. So, a firm that I hadn't come across, Australian-based, CyberArk, came out of Israeli military, high-level security encryption, tackling one of the major issues in financial services, which is identity access management. So it sounds very jargony, but it's really, do I know who I'm dealing with? And if you think about banking forever, it's been about a trust handshake, which is, I know who you are. And in the world we live in, which is, as a result of COVID, the whole world is digitized, and we've probably had 5 years worth of digital adoption in the last 10, 12 months, as everyone knows. And it talks to those points that you mentioned, which is, some of the stuff we relied upon, being able to get in front of people, being able to talk to people, being able to be, really convincing like you are about the huge impact that Cure Kids and many, many other things do, it has to change and adapt. And so, it was a great meeting. What I've found from the 3 meetings is the people pitching have been really well prepared. They get to the point, they know that there's only a certain amount of time. I try and be clear with them, which is, I know from being a business person myself that no one's got time to waste time. So if we're not interested, we'll say. If we're interested, I'll pass them on to the right exec in my team, which I did yesterday. From Meeting Magic, which I think finished at 1, I had an email from them 1:30. I passed it on to my chief technology officer, who passed it on to our chief security information officer, and there's another meeting in play. So I'm not saying everything's going to go that way, but it is a platform that's really easy to enable. I think that the ask that you've got, you are a convincing son of a gun at the best of times. So it's low effort in a sense, which is, there's a packed diary, but when you think about what your kids are going through and what you work for, I think the question you ask yourself is, are you really so busy that you can't find 45 minutes to try and help Cure Kids? Now, the challenge we've got when we're all working the hours we're working is I don't have 10 hours to give to Cure Kids. So can I have some sort of impact? Can I sort of help in a way that's, realistic for me? I'm a trustee on a charity, which I really, really enjoy, but I just don't have the bandwidth to do anything more. But I think I can contribute in a different way, and so I'm happy to do it. We live in a platform world, and, meetmagic is a great platform. Regardless of what platform you choose to operate on, it's obvious that the world has moved to platform economics and the way that works. And I think meetmagic's a great platform to connect people. It works really well for me, and I'd really encourage people to participate and just be open and fair, like any business, which is, if you're not interested, just say it's not personal. If you've already got a locked-in arrangement with a vendor that you really trust and is your partner, then maybe it's not going anywhere. But all 3 meetings for me have been really fruitful, so I'm really positive about it.
Have you thought about, Steve, the other way, that maybe you've met as a senior leadership team and gone, actually, there's certain areas that we may need to look at certain vendors, and then go the other way and go, well,
yeah, I agree. It's a two-sided market, Brendon. So it's a great point. So I've sort of been the recipient, which is obviously the people are doing their homework around who they want to speak to. But ultimately on LinkedIn, you can see I'm a CEO of a bank, and a bank's going to be interested in information security, so not real hard. But I did think yesterday the point was, well, actually, some of the areas that we're wanting to make progress on. Like, so one of the things that I really want everyone at Kiwibank to feel is that they belong. And some of us would have read the Owen Eastwood book about belonging and thought about that. And we're 20 years old next year. We want to have a celebration of all of the whakapapa of people who have come before us and their contribution. So, on my side, would I reach out and say, hey, who's out there in the network that could really help us with, strengthening that fabric of belonging? And so, I don't see it as one-sided that, I've been, privileged enough to be in this role and therefore I'm going to, bestow some time on you. I feel it quite the other way, which is actually, I know there's a huge amount of talented people out there that I can't see, but maybe this is a platform that I can reach some people to say, hey, one of the areas I really want to build skills and knowledge and attributes in is, that sense of belonging. And how do you do that at scale? We're not a massive organization. We're 2,000 people, but I want every single person to feel like they can belong, that they can bring their whole selves to work, that it's safe to speak up and go, you know what, I'm not sure about this. Is this really what we're about? Or, hey, I'm not feeling great at the moment. Most of us, Australia and New Zealand, I'll just use that audience because it's the one I'm most familiar with. If you've been in Victoria and the most locked down place in the world, you're coming out of it into a really different environment in New South Wales and in Victoria. Auckland's on the cusp of, is it going to be traffic lights? Is it going to be Christmas? All of those things are hugely uncertain. And if you can't feel a place that it's safe to belong at work, then, it's even harder. And, you and I ran into each other yesterday, but, talking about juggling kids and work and all those different balances, so I'm sure there's people out there on the platform that can help. So I think it's a great point and super interesting to think about how we can reach into it the other way.
I think the other thing too also is and I think about your organisation and you being the leader of that organisation, and I know you just don't work with one charity. I know you do a lot of work with a lot of other different organisations. How important is that for your organisation that they seem to be also doing that charity or that giving back stuff?
I think it's a great point. We've just recently received our BCorp accreditation, and BCorp accreditation was about at the heart of Kiwibank's sort of reason for being. Was, if you don't know the backstory, 20 years ago, a politician said, hey, New Zealand would be better off if it's at its own bank, because New Zealand is very strongly dominated by the big four Aussie-owned banks like it is in Australia. And so the proposition from this Jim Anderton at the time was, hey, New Zealand would be better off if it has its own bank. That became the Kiwibank purpose, which is Kiwi making Kiwi better off. And so that's a really strongly held purpose. What wasn't as good as it could be is the clarity about what does that mean. And so one of the things that it meant was the sort of things like, how do we contribute? How's Aotearoa better off for what we do? And BCorp accreditation and that balancing of profit and purpose, Brendon, which is just what you're sort of talking about there, was, okay, so how do we benchmark ourselves and not mark our own homework around where we're really at with BCorp? And what's been fascinating about since we announced we had the BCorp accreditation is, the LinkedIn messaging is in the hundreds. We had very large institutional investors in our recent, 81 issue where we go out to the market and sell our bonds. 3 of the largest investors said to us, you're on our green list because of the BCorp accreditation. Right. So if you think about, doing good and being more attractive to investors, there isn't a trade-off. This isn't one or the other thing. This is both. And if you're a team member at Kiwibank, you should feel proud about the fact, I think, you work for a place that can balance profit and purpose. And, our board asked us, will we be dialing back commercial performance because of BCorp, which is a great question if you're an owner or a director. The answer, no, I think it'll be enhanced. I think there's more customers in New Zealand who would say, I'd rather be with you because of that than say, oh, this is greenwashing or whatever. I don't care. Now, I certainly accept there's heaps of New Zealanders that it's not super important. They're putting food on the table, they're navigating a pandemic, and they're doing what they care about.
But I think Brendon is probably one of the few people that I know whose head, hands, and heart are completely aligned. And I think you as a BCorp, what you're just doing there with these meetings, for example, you're setting the example almost as a BCorp, because this is all about giving a purpose. And I think that is what's going to attract all of that impact capital out there as well. Is doing good, and it's okay to do good and make profit at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's right, Carl. And I think, actually it's even more than that. I think there's just an absolute rising expectation around, I want to see your credentials. I want to see, how you've been able to, deliver on those things you're promising.
I want to go back to the start because I want to talk about the process when I approached you, Steve, because I remember the conversation we had, and I think I remember what you said to me, because who'd want to talk to me? And all of a sudden, you know, you're in a situation where there are people that do want to have that conversation. I know it was probably just more of a flippant remark, but tell me about the process of actually signing up and going through, and how simple that is, because there are a few people that are watching now that are kind of going, well, what was that process like for you? Was it easy?
It couldn't be easier. You know, it is. I mean, that's the great things about the platform, right? Which is the hard mahi or work has been done in the background by great people to make it easy to adopt it. And, you know, you think about anything that works on a platform, the barrier to adoption is like, how hard is this to join? It seems like a great idea, but if this is going to take me days or weeks of effort, then, you know, I'll probably, you know, lose my mojo about wanting to be part of it. It's really, really easy, really simple. Part of it is, I think, for me, just trying to be realistic about the expectations that I can, you know, how many people I can meet and how many people I can, you know, support in the meeting and do justice to, Brendon. So that's really the only thing, but that's really about choice and priorities. And hey, that's what every person on this call is doing every day, is making choices around where they want to put their focus and where they'll allocate their time. So I don't think it's any harder than that. In fact, probably one of the easier things I've participated in. I'm just trying to manage expectations about how much I can offer and do a decent job to the people that are, you know, contributing to the platform and Cure Kids, because I want to be fair. Like, I mean, good business is about a fair deal and what do I give and what do I get. So I do want to be able to promise that, you know, I'm doing something decent on the other side.
And you know, Steve, we actually mandate that these meetings do not expect any deals to come out of them. Your job is to go and build a new connection. We know that things have changed in the sales world. Salespeople today cannot go into a sales meeting and pitch product. They can't.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not on. No exec wants to be sold to. So
yeah, and I mean, Carl, I mean, if there's people on the call that are worried about that, I can just say, look, I mean, it's not a really robust sample, but hey, I've had 3 of them. All 3 organisations have been super well prepared and super professional, and it is to that point, right? Which is, you know, you don't pay the money for a cold call. If they want a cold call, they'll be like the 1,000 other emails that I get on LinkedIn going, hey, I've got an exciting proposition for you. Would you like to spend half an hour with me? It's like, sorry, I just can't do justice to that. What I will do is put my trust in the platform. And that's the key thing about platforms as well, right? Have they got the right amount of trust in them? I trust Brendon. He's done a bit of a trust transfer to the platform, which is, you know, he knows he's got some credibility and Cure Kids has got some credibility relying on the platform. So I'll believe he's done his due diligence that it makes sense. But also, look, I just say to people, this isn't, you know, it would be crazy for someone to pay that money just to turn up and not be clear about what they're offering and why. So I don't think they'll do that, and they haven't done that. And so, but I, you know, having been at the sales side of banking for sort of 15 years of my career, I couldn't echo more what you say, Carl, which is about prep, about what problems are you trying to solve. You know, this sort of spirit of generosity, like everyone that I've spoken to so far has offered up ideas, insights, have you thought about, you know, and that's all great. So that's part of how they get the conversation going. And so I think really easy.
It's so good to hear. We'll keep those clients on there if they're good ones. We've actually had a couple of clients that have gone in there and hard sold, and we've given them a strike, because you can't do that, because we don't want any exec feeling under pressure that they've got to buy something or they've got to do something, because we don't want them to waste their time like that. This is all about sharing knowledge and doing something with it.
Oh, I mean, good on you. I also think if you're the pitcher in that business, then you know that your strike rate will be near zero. So I don't mean how many times you want to pay whatever you're paying for a 0 hit rate, but you know, if you're a decent business, you'll soon run out of juice of knowing that this isn't going to work if that's what you're offering. So, hey, you know, and there's lots of really interesting stuff online around how, you know, how the relationship build and selling has changed in a COVID world. So I think we're all building some new skills, and we're all just accepting, hey, this is kind of what we're doing now is sort of the new normal, right? Versus, you know, hey, once upon a time we would have hired a room at Generator and we would have been able to speak to everyone, and just actually you got to adapt. This is different.
I think the other thing that people also need to understand, it's not just the CEO that these
exactly right.
With, you know, it could be the CTO, the CFO. So it's I'm not saying it's more than the CEO, but as you mentioned, you had a conversation and then you handed that off to whoever that needed to go to. It doesn't necessarily have to go through that.
I think that's a great point you make, Brendon. Then it is about identifying, across our business model, what are the sort of core components that we've got a lot of focus on, because some parts of our business, like we don't need any more people telling us about how we do fit out in branches, for instance. We've got architects, we've got fit out, we've got a design. That's probably not going to change for the next, 3, 4, 5 years. So, I wouldn't put the head of property on because we're probably not going to do a lot there. We've got a second support office in Auckland now. We're in there for 10 years. We've made our big choice. A few years ago, sure, that would have been an interesting thing to pitch to, but not now. We won't be making choices there. But every single day, we're building our cyber capability. Every single day, we're talking about cloud adoption. Every single day, we're talking about, customer and users and their experiences. Those are all areas that in a bank are going to be always on. So, Hamish, our Chief Digital and Technology Officer, or Elliot, our Chief Product and Strategy Officer, or how we're going to build our human capital capability, our Chief People Officer, we're always on for ideas there. But in other areas, it's a balancing act. We're not looking to change out, we work on Microsoft platform. We don't need another solution for Outlook. We've got one of those. So don't pitch us one of those because we won't be buying.
So, Steve, I know you're a very well respected person around the traps. The people that I know and the friendships you have and the business contacts you have. What is it, do you think, that makes you? And I know this is probably a hard question to ask because you're kind of probably blowing your own trumpet. But what is it that makes you a great leader?
I always have a serious case of that. I'm not quite so sure about that, Brendon. But what I would say, I think, is, and I was trying to think about this last night to give a better answer than I thought perhaps I was going to in the first instance, was I think I've got a reasonable ability to try and create some energy. And in my own career, the sort of only thing I've ever had was I've never really had a career plan, which makes me a bad person to talk to about it. But what I think I have had is a pretty strong sense of what gives me energy, and I've always been keen to follow that because I feel like if I'm doing things that give me energy, I'm at my best. I know I'm better in situations where the problem feels hard, we're a bit of an underdog, and people are saying we can't do it. I feel really energized in those situations. I don't feel very energized when it's Groundhog Day. I know that's hard because I can get a bit disruptive and distracted. I need to really stay away from, I know when I get into that in roles and things, I know I need to do something different. So I do think I've got a pretty strong sense of possibility. I get heaps of bigger buzz out of being part of a team. One of the things I find hard about being a CE is that there's moments that are a bit lonely and you need to keep your own counsel. I don't enjoy that. Lockdown, for someone who gets energy from being around people, that's probably the number one thing I've found challenging. Like, I'm well set up, it's not a poor me, but I know personally I really miss the company and I really miss the energy from being around people. And so I think maybe that's been good. I've tried to be an energy giver. I'm a sort of person that loves to give something a crack. And hopefully that creates a bit of an excitement. And the people I've been around or had the privilege to be, their manager or leader, have felt like we really want to give it a red hot go. And I think people are excited by that. I'm a sort of it's interesting in my personal life in terms of, what we do and invest in and stuff. I'm quite conservative, but actually in a business activity level, I feel like I'm up for a risk, a managed risk, but I'm up for a risk in giving things a go. So, that's probably a list of things. For me, more interesting question, I reckon, Brendon, has been, what I have really loved has been what I call the University of Life, which is sort of being around people and observing, what they sort of bring and what their I always ask people what their superpower is. Like if I had to have a guess at your superpower is that you build rapport and relationships really well. And so, regardless of whatever role you're in, if you can use that superpower, like you do now, but you have done in previous roles, then you'll go well. And so I think I'm okay at trying to bring out and try and give people a chance to use their superpower. But the thing I found fascinating around the CEs that I've worked around is, one of the things I've really noticed from, say, Gail Kelly, who ran Westpac, Sir Ralph Norris, who's run Air New Zealand and ASB and CBA, Barbara Chapman, who ran ASB, as examples, Hugh Burrett, sadly now passed away, but also a chief executive of ASB, is one of the things they're really good at is, I always imagine it like you're on stage and the spotlight's above your head. Like, they're really good at making you feel like you're the person that counts in that moment. And sometimes it's only a couple of minutes because that's all you've got. But, you can call it engagement, or you can call it present, or, there's a whole lot of things. But, man, they really make it, make you count. And I think, for me, that's always brought out the best in me, because I've sort of felt a sort of sense of belonging, a sense of commitment to what we're trying to achieve. And, they say that character is what you do when no one's looking. And I think those sort of leaders have always brought out the best, I think, which is, I'm doing it because I care about it, not because someone's watching me or feels like that's the right thing to do. So, that's the observation I make about great leaders, is they make you feel like you belong. Their presence is like they're connected to you. But, sometimes in these functions, it's 2 minutes with you, and then it's 2 minutes with Carl, and it's 2 minutes with whoever. Doesn't need to be long, but they're 100% on when they're on. And that's the sort of observation I'd make, which is, it's easy to follow someone and belong when you've got that.
I agree. I always say the lips and the heart go together. Otherwise, you're just spinning me a yarn like everybody else.
Yeah.
I think relationships. I always say relationships are hugely and massively important. And I think when you think of business, I think of business as long-term business. I don't think. Yeah. I want to. Let's hold hands and let's walk together and let's grow whatever it is. Because I think that's what that creates a long-term relationship, and I think it's important. I always bore people, mate, with this comment, which is you're a 5-year overnight success. It's people will always sort of underestimate how much they often say, oh wow, what was your lucky break, or how did you get in the position you're in, or how's this company like this? It's like, well, hey, it was every single day, every single hour, every day of the week for the last 5 years. And that's what we mean by an overnight success, And I know that, like, I first started working around Sir Ralph Norris in 1998, and I can still tell you what he said about the vision for the bank at the time, which was to be New Zealand's best bank excelling in customer service. And it's because that he said it 5,000 million times. But, more than 30 years, or sort of 30-ish years later, I can still remember what he was talking about. And that's the sort of, that, as you say, that long-term build, that consistency, that, all those sorts of things make a massive difference. Well, that's what drove me to this fella here, Carl Gough. What he's created and what he's doing. His energy's right. He knows exactly where and what he wants to do. He's giving of himself. He knows and wants to make a difference. And to me, I was moved by that, and I wanted to follow that, and I wanted to help him to grow this business, because I think what he's trying to do is massive and will make a massive difference. So, hey, I'm aware of the time. Carl, you've got a question?
We've got 2 minutes left, right? And I know you've got some questions to get to Steve. I want to ask Steve one quick question, because Steve, you talk about superpowers. Mine's grit. It's never giving up, because I come from a very humble background. We never had much as kids growing up. And for me to be on a stage here with you is a bit of a proud moment. But I know there's a lot of people out there that don't have much, and they might only have $1,000 in the bank. And so I wanted to say, if you're a person that's struggling right now and you've only got $1,000 in the bank, as a bank CEO, what would you recommend they do with that $1,000?
Well, that's a great question. I think the first thing I'd say is around financial acumen and all those things in banking is, like, there's, it can feel overwhelming, but, there's a few real basic things, right, which is pay yourself first. So if you have got any spare capacity to pay down debt that's not, working for you, or you can put some money aside towards a better retirement, that, the dollar cost averaging and the long-term value of money works really, really well. That's the secret source of banking and financial services, right? Anything that you can put aside now will be worth way more in 10 or 15 or 20 years. And it can seem not a lot sometimes, but it sure adds up. yeah, I think, I mean, ultimately speak to people that can help you, speak to the people that can hit where you're at for your level of acumen and expertise. And, there's a lot of people that want to help, but there's sort of like 3 or 4 really basic rules that really help, things on that sense. I mean, I take your point. Like my parents separated when I was about 3. My mother worked 3 or 4 jobs, 70 hours, 80 hours a week, for all of, for a long time. And so I hear you around it. I ultimately think it makes you stronger. One of the things I've seen in leadership is often those hard times early on are a real asset. I often see people who have been really great at school, really great at university, struggle when they have their first knockback, because they're just not used to it. Everything's sort of gone their way, and that's not to say they're lucky, but sometimes that late knock is hard, because if you get your first one, you don't get the first big, you get a graduate job or whatever, you go for that next job and someone says to you, look, hey, not yet, can be hard for people to handle, or their first stuff up, which has, a serious consequence, can be hard to handle later in life. So, persistence, resilience, not giving up, man, those are great skills and attributes. And, I was thinking in the workplace, one of the things I really observe is the people who stick their hand up and have good energy for taking something on, they're always the one who get the best opportunities, because, they've got the drive and they want to make it happen. And, in my role, I'm looking around for people who want to make it happen. So, the number one thing I'm supposed to do is find the best people I can and get out of their way. And so that's what I try and do, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much. But, yeah, I mean, I think the $1,000 is, ultimately it's not where you start.
Yeah.
You're an absolute
champion. And I know Brendon's got these questions to you. I just want to say a big thank you for my team, for Rebecca, for Marcia and Angeli and Christina and Vicky for working tirelessly to make this whole thing work in the back end. I've surrounded myself with people that are better than me too, and they're all those people. So, Brendon, I know this is a fun part, so stick around.
Just a quick one, Steve. So the quick fire. Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Summer or winter?
Money helps though.
Wine or beer?
Beer.
Introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert, in the sense of I get energy from being around people.
Warriors or the Melbourne Storm?
Storm. Mate, that's the easiest one.
Speedos or boardies?
What was that, mate?
Speedos or boardies?
Boardies. If I look like you, I might be out in the smugglers, mate, but no, I'm in the board shorts.
Favourite holiday destination?
Hey, look, at the moment it's Omaha. But more generally, man, I miss travel. I really do. And lucky enough to done a reasonable amount of it, but there's nothing like missing it to make you appreciate it, right?
What's your go-to dish for dinner?
For me, cooking.
Yeah.
What would I say? Oh, look, I actually love a wood-fired pizza.
Okay. What's your hidden talent?
What's my hidden talent? Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, I don't know. I just, I like to try and, create a bit of energy, I guess.
Would you ever do stand-up comedy?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to do it, but I really admire people who do it. And I think it's, the courage and the skill that goes into it's awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure I'd make a lot of dough doing it, to be honest.
And the final one, would you ever appear on a reality TV show?
No, definitely not.
Dancing with the Stars?
No. As I said, I think that's better to leave it to handsome people with rigs like yours. I'll leave you guys to do that.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. And I know we've had a lot of comments come through on the platform. People really appreciated you being honest about what you're doing. And I guess from the Meet Magic and Jurkovich perspective, thank you for donating your time. I know there's people out there, if you haven't signed up and this is something that you feel you want to be involved in, you can see it down below there. Please register at www.meetmagic.org/NZ and join the team. Thank you once again, Steve. Really, really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Cheers.